Hi, I'm David May. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of CID Property Management's online training session. Today, we're going to be talking about the role of the association president. Now, as always, bear in mind that this is not an all-encompassing, all-inclusive course on everything to know about being an association president. It's going to be a good overview as to what your general responsibilities are as the president. And for further detailed clarification on any one particular area, you should always refer to the association's governing documents and to the California Civil Code. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but just keep that in mind as we go through. Now, let's talk about the role as the association's leader and the manager. As the leader of the association, you are going to make it possible for others to participate within the association and to perform their duties. The board president will also direct the activities of the association. You'll motivate volunteerism within the association. You'll initiate ideas and activities regarding the association. You'll set the agenda that determines the direction for the association's activities. So it's kind of all on you. You are the leader of the association, of this corporation, and of your community. And so that is probably your primary focus, primary responsibility. And also you'll be acting as the association's manager. The association president acting as manager, you'll maximize the association's resources, and you'll execute and delegate the required tasks that come in front of you as the board president. So you will both be manager and leader. Primary responsibility is leading everybody, as I mentioned. The association spokesperson as well is another area that you have as a responsibility. You officially speak for the board and the association as the board president. You'll also serve as liaison between the board and management and vendors. And you'll report back to the board on the content of any communications that you'll have had with you and the vendors or management, so that everybody stays on the same page and keeps informed throughout the entire process of whatever it may be that you'd be working on. The board president also operates on democratic principles, kind of similar to a town mayor. You'll focus on methods of leadership that motivate member participation and that will also enhance the community. The board president should not act unilaterally, but rather with the full support of the board. Obviously, there will be dissenting viewpoints on occasion, but hopefully you'll be able to muster the rest of the support for your agenda or for the board's agenda and get projects through that need to be done. And the board should not have any hidden agendas. No board member should have any hidden agendas in regards to what it is that they're doing in regards to anything within the association. Goals and priorities. The president leads the board in specifying and prioritizing goals. You'll also publish and review the association's progress in achieving the goals. We'll talk about that in a minute. You'll also have set up some long-range goal setting that needs to be planned for. And this goes beyond the day-to-day activities of the association. It should be looking down the road 1 year, 2 years or more, depending on what it is that you're looking at and what project you're looking at. And a lot of these things will, for example, be set up within the reserve study that each association is responsible for conducting and adhering to. Now, you as the president will facilitate communication through a number of resources that you'll have. One of the best ones is community newsletters. Those are great resources to look at, to incorporate your viewpoints and what all is going on within the community. You also have a website. We provide those free for those associations that want them and qualify for them. And also the annual report, which is included with the annual disclosure packet. And in there you'll have any accomplishments and important actions that you may have done throughout the year. And those can all be summed up in the President's report to the community through the annual report. So let's get organized here. And the master calendar is a great way to get organized. It sets up the events for the coming year. I'll show you in a minute what that looks like, but it'll include things like meetings, budgets, various contracts, anything in regards to the election, the maintenance schedule, social events. Now the maintenance schedule, by the way, could even be a separate calendar that you might want to set up depending on the complexity of the association's assets. And then the board will approve the calendar for the upcoming year. And here's a look at what that sample calendar would look like. And as you can see, there are a number of, most of those things that we just mentioned are on this calendar here for the sample homeowners association. Now, another important area is education for not only you as the board president, but also for the board in general. It's important to know how to be a good board member, and there are a variety of resources that you can always go to. You can read books, newsletters that come out that you also get sent electronically. Some of them come in the mail, but there are so many different resources that you can go to in terms of the books and newsletters. Also, you can attend seminars. A lot of them are put on by some of the association attorneys in the communities, and those are usually a legislative update type of thing, where you'll get an update on what has occurred within the California state legislature and things that have been passed by the legislature that will affect the community, your community in specific. And you should also join CAI, Community Associations Institute. CAI is a good opportunity to network with other board members and to see what all is going on within other communities, so you don't feel like you're just the Lone Ranger out there trying to operate within just your own arena. There are other board members, and they're good people to talk with and get networked in with. Also, educational opportunities that they have. There are a lot of different courses you can take, from finances to any type of thing, a number of different courses. So those are good opportunities for you to take advantage of as a board president. And the association should be covering those costs, any costs involved, because that's for the benefit of the entire association. The board president will also serve as liaison between management and the board. So let's talk about that for a minute. Working with management, you as the president are the primary point of contact with management. And the president and the board should collectively provide direction to management, set expectations of management, and keep management informed so that we're all on the same page. That's the main thing, so that we're all working together, that you can have the best possible management, possible resources available, and we're all working together all on one page. Now, we as a management company are generally responsible for operations, for vendors, for collections, managing funds, payment of accounts payable, all those sorts of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. We take those off the shoulders of the association, and our resources here at the management company handle those on your behalf. So those are the areas that we're responsible for in part. You'll also, as a president, serve as a liaison between the association's attorney and the board. Now, the president will contact the association's attorney directly. You'll also may direct the management to contact the attorney on behalf of the association, and we generally are the ones that will contact the attorney and get the board's questions answered, and we get back with you with any responses, written or otherwise, that we may get from the association's attorney. And so we're usually that primary contact, but the board president is also one of the primary contacts as well. Now, the president's authority, let's talk about that. For starters, the California Civil Code is your overriding authority in terms of the California law, and that specifies the scope of the authority of the association through things like the Davis-Sterling Act, California Business and Professions Code, California Corporations Code, and others that have to do with you as an association, but also as a California corporation, a nonprofit corporation. There are also the governing documents that you need to be aware of and very familiar with. And those would include the Articles of Incorporation, the CC&Rs, or the Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, bylaws, and those generally will address very briefly the scope of the authority of the board president, but also in the rules and regulations that gives you the governing documents in total of what you'll generally be needing to know and have intimate familiarity with. And within the common areas, those are also spelled out within the governing documents. That's another reason that you need to be very familiar with the governing documents. And the president should also know where those areas, those common areas are, and what you're responsible for. Where does the association's responsibility begin and end? And so some associations are much more complex than others, and you'll find the details of that in each individual document for your own particular association. As a board president, you'll also be working with volunteers and other professionals. And the president will serve as a general manager and oversee the day-to-day matters within the association. Those are your areas of responsibility. So for example, you'll be working with the board. You'll be encouraging them to participate within all of the areas. Your vice president, VP, will stand in for you when you're not there. Your association secretary and treasurer, they should also be familiar with their duties. We recommend that you have them review the videos that address their individual roles. Just as you're watching this, they have their own specific videos as well. And you'll continue to develop the board members' abilities by keeping all of them informed as to what's going on, and can't stress that enough to keep everybody informed and on the same page. You want to get them involved with communities, maybe chairing each of the communities within the community. Your governing documents may be more specific in regards to that, but that's one area that you would be responsible for. Make sure that they review also, as I said, the videos on conducting a board meeting. And that does get into more detail, and they should all be on the same page and operating the board meetings in the same manner and fashion. And you should convey the board's goals and issues to all new board members, and sit down with the new board members. Make sure that they understand what's expected of them and give them an orientation. There are a variety of ways that can be accomplished, and not the least of which, of course, are these video series, but also your guidance on what you as the leader of the community and as the board leader need to expect, or that you are expecting of them. And you'll also ensure that all board members are very familiar with the governing documents, as I mentioned a bit ago. Now, you'll be working with the committees. You have the overall responsibility of that, and you should provide clear direction to these committees. You should give them what their job assignment is, the completion dates, the expectations of you, and also the rest of the board as to what you want them to accomplish. And you should get agreement on outcome expectations ahead of time so that they know what you want them to do. And then once everything's done, give them credit where credit's due, either in the form of a mention in the newsletter or at the next board meeting, whatever it may be. Now, nominations for the board. The president, you as a president, should always be on looking out for potential board members and make recommendations for potential committee members or board members. Talk to and encourage other community members to get involved with your community. And that's a good thing for you to be doing as a community leader. And you'll also be heading up the election process, and that's of course spelled out in California Civil Code and your bylaws and the association's election rules. But you need to make sure that those all get done and done properly as the board president. Now, you'll also be working with other professionals. The president should be familiar with and seek out professional advice from the association's attorney, from your insurance specialist, reserve specialist, or your insurance agent, I should say. All of these individuals, landscape company, all these people are the experts in their given areas. Nobody is an expert in everything, and clearly, and that's why you seek their advice and counsel in their different areas. And you should also do that because it ensures that the board has performed their due diligence. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about fiduciary responsibilities and what that means. First of all, the fiduciary duty, Black's Law Dictionary states that a fiduciary duty is a duty to act for someone else's benefit while subordinating one's personal interest to that of the other person. It is the highest standard of duty implied by law. For example, a trustee or a guardian, or in this case, you're on the board of directors. So that's a fiduciary duty that you need to be familiar with and responsible for. You also have a duty of care. Now, due diligence means that directors must be diligent and careful in performing their duties. You need to keep informed and make reasonable inquiry. In other words, you need to make sure that you review each decision process that you make and give it your best effort, rather than just doing something on the fly, as it were. You also have a duty of loyalty. There should be no self-dealing. The directors must act in the best interest of the association, even if it is at the expense of their own interests. And there should be no steering of any contracts for any director's benefit, and which is the kind of a definition of self-dealing. And the business judgment rule, if you follow all these, the business judgment rule, which gives limitations on liability for volunteers, will be adhered to. You won't have the problem. If you're making things up as you go and not adhering to California Civil Code and not doing your due diligence on your behalf, then you would not be doing the business judgment rule. You wouldn't be protected under that. If you have any questions about that, please contact us because that is a very important area. You'll also have the budgets that you're responsible for as the board president. You'll be participating in the budgeting process. You'll be working closely with those making out the budget, be they committee members or the management company. You'll also consider what the community wants in terms of, well, whatever it may be, because while you're the board president and board of directors, you do have to take into consideration what the community, the majority of the community, wants and needs. So you keep that in mind in regards to making up the budgets. You'll also want to promote the understanding of the association's reserves and what that means to each association and the members and so forth. So you need to have a good understanding of the reserves. You should increase assessments when necessary to accommodate the budget, and it's an unfortunate thing. It's a hard thing to do, I know, as a board president. I've been a board president, so I know exactly what that's like in having to deal with budgets that have increased without any possibility of trimming anything out of there. So it's a difficult situation, but you as the leader are responsible for making sure that those do get taken care of, that if the budget has to be increased and accordingly the assessments need to be increased, that's something that you as a board president need to make sure gets accomplished. The insurance, you need to review and understand the association's various insurance policies. You'll have several that you'll be responsible for. Make sure that the required insurance coverages are up to date, and that you can have the association's insurance agent review the policies with the board. They're more than happy to do that. That's part of what they do, just as we work with the board on our areas of management. The association's insurance agent will be happy to work with the board in regards to that, so that everybody knows what's going on. Now, the board president will preside over the board and membership meetings. Now, the board meetings, as I mentioned before, you want to review the video on conducting the board meeting, because that's an important video for you to understand and follow. And you'll also want to review and become familiar with the California Civil Code 1363.05, which is also known as the Common Interest Development Open Meeting Act. Very, very important. Make sure all directors review the board packets prior to the meetings. You don't want to have them come to the meeting unprepared. they should have reviewed the board packets ahead of time. So encourage them to do that as the board leader and board president. Also at the board meetings, the president, this is one misconception that some people have. The board president can vote. You're not required to abstain. So just keep that in mind. But the president cannot veto anything that the board does. So it's because you're acting as a board of directors. So the majority does rule there, and the president cannot veto any one particular thing. And there's only one vote per director. And the directors vote, not the officers. So that's a distinction you need to keep in mind, that the board president, as a president or any other officer, you're not voting as the president, you are simply voting as a director. And that's why all directors can vote, and it doesn't matter that you're the president or just a director at large. You'll also be presiding over special board meetings, and you'll need to follow the proper notification and procedure as specified in the Civil Code 1363.05 for those particular meetings, whether it's maybe it's an emergency meeting or a meeting that needed to be held in between regular meetings. You'll need to make sure that you follow those civil codes that cover that. As far as the executive session, you'll also be presiding over that. That is not open to the membership, and you also must follow the civil code, the 1363.05. But you do not need to give notice to the membership, because it is an executive session meeting, and it's a confidential subject matter that will be covered in the agenda. But there are only certain things you can follow in that or address within the executive session. So those do not have to be publicly noticed nor given the agenda out or anything like that. Annual meetings you'll be presiding over as well. That's a great opportunity for you, the president, and the board of directors, to review your accomplishments with the membership for the previous year. And so that you can kind of let everybody know what's been going on. I mentioned other forms of communication that you should have and ways to get out your message to the community as to what you're doing on the community's behalf. So that's a good thing to know and have when they're at the annual meeting. So you, as the president, will also co-sign checks with the treasurer or the secretary. A couple of the accounts that you'll be working with, the operating account, the procedure may be stipulated by the governing documents. In other words, they'll be telling you what you need to do or what you need to sign as a board president. And typically, though, the president and the treasurer will sign the checks. A management company may also be one of the signatories or signers of each check, but again, that will be dependent on what your individual documents state. You'll also be one of the signers on the reserve account. California Civil Code requires that only board members sign a reserve account check, and that there must also be 2 signatures on the check. Your association may require even more, but certainly California Civil Code requires at least 2 board member signatures, no management company signatures on each of the reserve checks that get written. Delegation of duties. Now, I mentioned a little bit about that earlier, that management company usually does a large portion of the work for the president and other board members, like the treasurer or the secretary. We'll do a lot of those duties that are spelled out, but you still, as the president, must oversee the work, and you are still responsible for the work of the association, whatever is being done. Whatever we as a management company do or as anybody else does, you ultimately are responsible as a board president. And so again, it's a very important role that you play as the association president. Well, folks, that's a wrap. I appreciate your taking the time to watch the video and learn a little bit more about what your role is of the association president. And if at any time you have any questions, always please feel free to give us a call. And the number's right there on the screen. Give us a call. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your time, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you again in the near future. Thanks. See you again soon.